Hello and welcome to episode 130 of the Boot Nerds podcast. J Mike, today's going to be quite the episode.
We are going to talk about finally about the Adidas Predator Edge Plus and 0.1s and potentially also the 0.2s and 3s and stuff. It's going to be one of the, if you've seen the reviews on the Unisport channel and also especially on your channel, I think people watching the Boot Nerds podcast will already they'll know what's coming, right? But it's going to be a little bit of an interesting one because I'll set myself this mission today that I'm going to try and be the devil's advocate, both good and bad, for the Edge. Before we open that Pandora's box of let's say mental candy, how are things in Canada?
I'm doing well.
Okay.
There's a lot of snow.
Okay.
It's cold.
What else is new?
It's very Canada right now. That's the best way I can describe it.
Well, funny thing is that in Denmark, I think it's like the Danish equivalent to the current Danish or Canadian weather. It's raining all the time. So that's great. Nothing else is new. So
I'd love a bit of rain.
Yeah. I was gonna complain, but I definitely understand. I'm not gonna complain. Speaking of Josh complaining, I know what you're gonna do this episode, so you know what, mate. You might as well just take it away. Predator Edge Plus, go. Two girls over drinks, go.
I was so excited about this product.
I know.
And I know there's a lot of people that really don't like the way that it looks. And I don't agree with that. I think it's a pretty cool looking boot. You can hate the launch colorway. And I think that new black colorway that they just launched today,
That's
the
really
day
good.
we're recording this
I'll be
video,
honest.
those
Really
look
good.
really, really cool to me.
Yeah.
However,
that was a quick list of all the pluses.
there are so many shortcomings to this as a product. And I think there's just so many like critical mistakes that I'm genuinely surprised that this made it to production, given the standard that I think we've come to expect from the three stripes. Like
they've had some good years, right? They've had some really good years. Like if you think back to the reshuffle in 2015, okay. It was a bit of a rough start, right? The boots weren't bad, but they weren't fantastic either. And then, at least from a hype point of view, they did amazingly with the 16 plus Pure Control. It's not the best boot ever, but it was fresh, it was innovative, it was new, right? And since then, I feel like they have generally, at least, been on a roll. It's like they've been riding the wave. And it just feels like, the Copa Sense wasn't mind-blowing, at least not compared to the 19 and 20 pluses. And I also feel that this is not the boot that it probably could and should have been for them to keep riding that positive wave.
Yeah, I think right now they're very fortunate to have something in the X Speed Flow 0.1 and Plus that is as good as those two football boots are. Because I think you said it, the Copa is not. I think there's some merit to the Sense Plus if you like the way that they feel.
Definitely.
I think the Sense 0.1 is a disaster.
It's not a bad boot, the Sense Plus, but it just feels like stuck a little bit in limbo because it is very streamlined and actually feels, I like that unique feeling you get when you have it on your foot. And it looks, I think it looks extremely, that new colorway.
Yeah, I love the way it looks. But I think it's a football boot it doesn't have a focus. They're trying to do a million things all in one product. And I mean, a Copa, you expect a leather boot. There's not enough leather. It's that simple.
But that's the thing. And the leather's not soft enough compared to what we were used to. And to be fair, both the Sense and the Edge, they come off the back of two phenomenal like ground products. Let's say the Copa 19 Plus and the Pred Mutator 20 Plus. I mean, they were phenomenal boots that really changed things and did it very, very well. So obviously they're tough to follow, if you know what I mean. Like 20s and the Freaks, they were just like facelifts based off of those boots. So it's a tough one to follow, but now it's here, the Edge, and it feels like to me at least, Adidas sat down and they said, right, what do we want to do? And someone put their finger up and said, yo, guys, we had this thing going with the Predator L set. The 1s, the 2s, and basically also the 3s, because the Instinct were technically 3s, right? How about we make a Predator L set full with all the technology we have right now? And everyone was just like, yep, that's a great idea. It's been a good week, guys. Let's go have some beer, have a nice weekend. And they just, they went down that road. And cool. And on paper, and this is where I said, I want to be the devil's advocate here. On paper, it works, right? We know that their zoning technology with SL rubber, it works. We know that they can work with knit. It works. We know that they've done brilliant laceless boots before. It works on paper. And that's the thing, right? So we've got Zone Skin here. And I don't know if you saw my review, but I said that Zone Skin is both the strongest card and the weakest link on the edge. And that's basically the most, that's the L set DNA thing that they run with it. So what do you think about that statement?
I said the same thing and had the same thought, where is it the Zone Skin elements being these long strips of rubber that, to the touch they feel soft enough, but ultimately that's going to be a major restriction in terms of how the upper is able to bend and its pliability in general. And I think when you have these on feet and you bend your foot, you can see a lot of the ugly creasing is partially happening because of those striking elements. At the same time, I just think that given on paper, if you eliminate the added weight and you eliminate some of the new names, this is basically the same materials that we've had on the last 2 generations of Predator that have been reformulated in such a way that ultimately just feels overly structured. To me, this Prime Knit upper, if you stripped away all of the Zone Skin rubber elements, is still way too stiff and unacceptable. When you see Prime Knit, when you hear Prime Knit, I just feel like it should be soft. It should be sock-like. And this doesn't have that. It has an overly structured sensation to it, to the point where, and I talked about this in my review, you put these football boots on, whether it's the 0.1 or the plus, and they don't change shape. That's unheard of for a pair of football boots in 2022. A football boot should adjust to your feet, not your feet kind of just fitting inside, which is why I kind of compared them to a pair of work boots, where it's like, yeah, work boots look like work boots no matter whose feet they're on. Football boots should take the shape.
That's also because of the shape, right? The volume in the toe box. I had a tough time coming to terms with that because, as you know, I have a really low volume foot, very slim foot, right? And there was just so much room inside of it for me. I know even for you, you have like a mega gigantic foot, right? There's a lot of volume there, and you had extra room. In the Preds. And I think, that if we say that the material is, let's just play with the idea that it's the exact same material as the Freak. But if on the Freak there are the spikes are smaller and they're more scattered around the upper, meaning that you have a lot more space in between the actual fins or the elements for the upper to crease and be soft and be pliable, right? Whereas here, the zones are just the structure of the zones is preventing that. So maybe you're right in saying that if you remove the zones, the Prime Knit would be stiffer. I don't know, to be honest. I was gonna say that take away the zones. I actually reckon this feels good because if you think about it this way, right? When you make the boot, you last it for 20 minutes or 24 hours, right? And that's when the boot takes its shape. But if you have the last in the shoe and you then take that out and normally the boot would fall down because the material is soft. And it would create that slightly more pointy shape. But here you have all the elements holding that in place even when you take the last out. What's going to happen? It doesn't fall down. It just creates this like mega box monster. So for me, it's like the and that's the funny thing. Like so Zone Skin is kind of preventing the upper from being soft. But at the same time, it's probably the best feature about the boot when it comes to performance.
Oh, absolutely. The grip is undeniable, but can you say that the grip is necessarily better than what we had from Demon Skin on the last 2 generations?
I wouldn't say it's justifiably different enough that's a bad sentence construction. You can't say, I wouldn't say it's that much better to justify the upper being stiffer. No, I won't say that.
Yeah, and that I think you made a really good point in the rubber kind of maintaining the shape and structure of the upper more so than certainly what we saw on the demon skin spikes, where it's just little tiny bits that are kind of not adding much in the way of structure, or at least not restricting the upper from moving. This to me is a football boot where when I look at the construction of the upper and the prime knit they've used and the changes they've made from the previous generation, I think there's just too much glue. Like this is just, it's rock solid. And for me, the disappointing part of this football boot, and I think a lot of people will experience this once they get the opportunity to try them on, is that this is a football boot that you put on your feet and they don't feel good. They just don't. And a lot of people suggested, oh, they're going to get better with break-in time and all that stuff. It really doesn't change all that much. It's a football boot that has kind of like a concept drawing shape, and that shape doesn't change because it's being held together by so much glue and the rubber elements and potentially the lining material that they've gone for. They made a football boot that to some people I think looks very cool, but they kind of took the fit and the comfort and the pliability, the way that the boot moves with your foot, that seems to have been a little bit of an afterthought in this overall design, whether you go for the laced and the laceless model. And I actually got to try the laced version first. And I was more excited about the laced version because I just knew it was going to fit better.
I mean, we both know they've been, should we say, our preference on the last two Preds, right? Because they've given us everything. Yeah, but I felt the same way.
Yeah, and I think what was surprising is I got to try these first and I was disappointed. I'm like, this does not feel good. It does not fit well. They are incredibly stiff. I actually compared them to a pair of Superfly 2s. It's the first boot in a very long time where I put them on my feet and I thought, wow, what the heck were they thinking? Then I got to try the laceless model, and to my surprise, because of less tension, because there isn't a lacing system, they do end up feeling more comfortable out of the box. But then again, you're dealing with issues in regards to lockdown through the heel. I think grip socks definitely help to mask that a little bit. But then again, if you look at the laceless design that they've come up with here, this is purely based on looking cool rather than actually being functional. The critical area across the top of the foot where you want to be hugging your foot as closely as possible is filled in with these super stiff rubber elements that have no stretch, have no compression. It's just, I don't know what they were thinking. They made a football boot that looks cool but isn't functional. It's the only way that I can describe the design of this upper. What's
I'm just comparing, because I really like the shape of the X, and I know it's unfair to compare, it's like comparing bananas and apples, right? But still, the shape of this boot is perfect for me. And I know it's a different type, different profile, all that stuff. But the volume, the size of this toe box is it is massive.
It's big. It's big. And I want to take this opportunity to point out, because I feel like I have been a large voice on the internet in regards to reading between the lines when it comes to how football boots are marketed by big brands. They want you to believe that what they're doing is cutting edge. They want you to believe that what they're doing is based on the input of the best players in the world. And when they release products like this, it just really makes me question who they were asking, whose opinion they got, who actually tried these on, whether or not that person had any nerve function in their feet. It's shocking. It's really, really shocking for such an established brand who's made so many good products as of late to do something that is flawed in so many ways.
But here's the thing, right? Are we being too harsh? Will there be people out there who will genuinely enjoy the edge?
Look, I think you can buy this football boot if you're excited about it. You can, there are. Because I grew up wearing Mercurials that made my feet bleed.
Yeah.
And I love them.
Yeah.
I love them. But I think that we, again, have this unique perspective where we've tried everything. We've tried the last couple generations of Predator. And I just, while I'm not in love with everything that the Freak Plus did or even the Freak Point 1, I don't love the shape of those boots. I still think the upper could do with being a little bit softer. The sole plate tooling could be a little bit better as well. But this is just, for $250, I think the bar has to be set pretty high, and this falls well short of that bar. Like I said at the very start of my review, we have to hold these big brands to a very high standard, and this is not the standard that I think we've come to expect from them.
Right. So basically, our main challenge with these boots lies with the fit, the shape, and the softness of the upper, right?
The comfort. I think with the Laceless model, the lockdown and the fit especially is
yeah. I actually felt a lot, but I was wearing grip socks when every time I wore these for the testing. So maybe, as you say, it will have masked that a little bit. I need to not wear grip socks when I test.
Also, another surprising thing about the Laceless model, just because it's crossing my mind, they're really hard to put on, really hard.
You think? I actually
found them really difficult to put on.
Much easier to put on than the Freaks. I struggled hard with the Freaks, man. It's to the point where my fingers were aching. Whereas these, it was it's a Laceless model, so it was difficult, but not to the point where I was struggling. I was pleasantly surprised because the opening is bigger, and it went in much easier.
No, I had the exact opposite experience.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
Oh, I thought, maybe opening's bigger and there's much more room inside the boot, so maybe there's less structure that my foot has to kind of squeeze past to get in. But hey, I mean, that's a funny little thing. I thought it was much better than the Freak. Man, Freak and Mutator, they were a nightmare to put on.
Yeah, they weren't easy.
And also, I found it a little bit difficult to get into to the 0.1 lows though.
Yeah, I don't think any of them are particularly easy to put on. And again, that's because the upper has very little give to it. It's not a stretchy material. It's not a soft material. I'll say this much. On a positive note, I think that this design has a lot of potential. I think if they swap out this prime knit base for something significantly softer, you could have a real winner here. If they put the hybrid touch from the Predator LZ on this football boot, I think you'd have... this shoe goes from zero to hero pretty quickly with a hybrid touch upper, in my opinion.
Yeah, I hear what you're saying. I was going to say, I don't think even hybrid touch can, I don't want to say save it because it sounds like it's not that bad to me, but hybrid touch can only do so much, right? And for me, the problem is all the structure that comes from the number and the stiffness, the structure of the fins. And this is where I would say what I would like to see is what they've done on the 0.2. Yes, the fins are smaller, they're not as tall, and there are fewer of them. But actually, when you put this on your foot, you get a much more pliable, a much more comfortable upper that actually follows, to some extent, the shape of your foot. Sure, there's a bit more structure than I still would like to, but it's, to me, significantly better than the two other boots. So imagine if they did these, the Zone Skin, should we call it 0.8 from the Edge 0.2, slap that on a hybrid touch base, or even like we saw on the Predcop X. Now that would be something interesting if they could keep a low volume toe box.
I agree with you. And I just thought of something right now, and I wish I would have talked about this in my review. I think when you compare this to something like a Predator LZ, which is obviously the comparison Adidas wants to make, I think that the Instinct is the better comparison based on the shaping of the elements themselves being more raised and just more kind of sharp edges to them. The elements were much more flat on a Predator LZ, but LZ1, LZ2, and Instinct, all with the hybrid touch base, that hybrid touch material was soft enough to where you could not only feel the added stiffness coming from the individual elements, especially that one on the inside of the toe, like the big toe area. I'm sure you remember that. And I really feel like with a soft, delicate touch, you could actually feel the individual rubber strips across the top of the foot.
And that's why I'm the other day, yeah.
Right? That you can, right? Yeah. To me, as much as I think that these elements being as long and as big as they are is part of the problem in terms of adding structure, you still can't feel them individually through this prime knit, which again, it's a material that maybe it's not super, super stiff as a standalone material, but it doesn't really allow for feel to pass through it.
Well, like the package just doesn't work well.
It's not pleasant. Like I don't know how else to describe it. For $250 or $275 for the laceless model, as much as I love having the additional grip, there's just no feel for the ball. It's not good. And there's not many football boots that I can say have that sensation.
That's true. But you know, and that can be a good thing or a bad thing. I knew a lot of people would probably point to that being a bad thing. But what I was going to say is that, the upper does have some issues, right? But with that said, you know, the reason that I like zone skin, I actually think, you know, on the ball, when you're playing, the amount of grip you get and the way that, you know, there's just so much rubber in contact with the ball at all times, and you feel that extra, I want to say, you know, oomph, that the power, that solidity, that backing when you strike the ball. I found that, you know, I have a struggle doing the Rabona, doing that, executing that well, really getting some height and some distance on that. In the Preds, no problem. I was like, what is going on? You know, I got height on it, I got distance, and I was like, I'm actually really good at this. And then I won my X's, and I sucked. So you know, there's definitely something to it. Do you feel like a big change over the Freaks? No, but I at least I told myself I was able to feel a difference. Especially, I went out in the Freaks a couple of sessions after I wore the edges, and I thought I could feel, you know, that the edges just had that little bit more bite. Of course, it comes at a cost, but if that's what you're looking for, I mean, that's a very, very unique feeling. And like you said, you don't get that in any other boot, the way these feel on foot. But that's also what I want to say, the way these feel on the ball. I can't think of any other boot right now that will give me that. It's simply like they just took the Freak and said, okay, let's go even more into that niche. Let's be even more specialized. And maybe they hadn't thought of the consequences, but I think that's at least something we should also mention, that you know, in that little niche of, you know, hardcore grip and power, for me, the Edge is the best in its area.
And I agree with you. I think it is. I mean,
we got to be fair, right?
It's unique. You can't. There's no other football boot you can buy that's going to feel like a Predator Edge, both on feet as well as on the ball. That extra grip, just like it was with the Mutator and the Freak, is undeniable. Yeah. And I think the surface area that the rubber covers on the upper does make this feel much more solid than the last two generations with deep skin. What I will say is I love the design of the pattern, but it reminds me of a couple other football boots that, granted, the type of rubber used wasn't quite as grippy, but I think to stuff like the T90 Laser 1, especially T90 Laser 2. I love the T90 Laser 2. You hate that football boot. Yeah, if you really think about it, this is a very similar concept, and the way that was executed to actually be able to bend with your foot is in between all of the rubber, you had kind of a more soft, meshy type material.
Do you think that, like, Josh of old would have liked the Edge?
Yeah, I do. I think I would have been blinded by just the striking element as a whole. And that is still, even right now, I look at the striking element, I'm like, wow, that is so cool. Can't wait to hit a ball with that.
We also, we have to touch on one thing, power facet. Tungsten. In tungsten material here in the forefoot that you can actually, I mean, you can physically feel that it adds some sort of weight. I don't know if it's that thing, but, you know, it's there and it feels like it adds weight. To be fair, in a match, in training, when you wear it, didn't feel a difference. Maybe it adds to that whole, you know, sensation of power and backing when you strike the ball, but I didn't feel that, you know, I didn't feel a difference, to be honest.
There's no tangible performance gain that you're going to be able to see or feel. No.
So yes, in hand, it's a very, it is a you know, a powerful feeling because it does add that weight and it drops when you hold it like that. But honestly, performance-wise, don't really feel a difference. Tooling, I mean, hats off to whoever designed this. This is
It's cool
absolutely
looking.
mega ridiculously cool.
Yeah, it's cool looking.
It like all electroplated toolings, it doesn't hold up that well when you start moving. You know, the paint starts cracking and all that stuff. But you know, off
that
the
sound.
shelf.
Did you? So I picked them up and I immediately bent the sole plate and I was like, I heard this awful crack and I'm like, oh no, did I just break them? No, it's just the paint on the surface.
Yeah, and of course it doesn't really matter, but it's just, I mean, I think it really adds to that whole sapphire thing that they're going with. You know, I get the idea. I think the design is cool. You know, it is edgy and it's bold, pun intended, but I like that they've just committed to it. And maybe that's what I want to say that I like about the Edge is that it's committed. You know, it's committed to what it does. And maybe the fit and the touch and the fit and the softness and the comfort hasn't been what Adidas really I think had hoped to do. But at least it's committed to the course, to that whole edgy design, very sharp, angular lines, and you just have that grip and power in abundance. And I got to tip my hat to that and say, fair play. Might not be for me, but for the people who are looking for that, it might be a very good option if they can look past that fit thing. Is it fair or is it a little bit, you know, like smoothing out?
I think it's a very half glass full perspective.
You know me, I'm a positive guy, right?
I know. I agree with you, and I think that's what they've done. They've fully committed to this wild concept, and I love it for that reason.
Okay.
But to excuse fit and comfort, just those two elements alone, forget about everything else. To excuse those two things as not being up to a certain standard for a top-end football boot that retails for $250+, that is inexcusable to me. And I just feel like it doesn't, for the differences that it does offer over the 20 Plus and the Predator Freak, I don't think that it's different enough to justify buying this over the older models at a discounted price. Because you have to take into consideration, while this is new, Predator Freak hasn't been wiped off the face of the earth. You can still go and get a pair of those. And I think that still ultimately does offer a much better experience, certainly from a fit and comfort standpoint. And I guess in regards to the facet frame and the addition of the weight, I love this idea. I was always a big fan of any implementation of power pulse that we've seen in the past. What I did not like about this implementation is that it was presented in by far the most gimmicky way possible. We are not going to tell you how much it actually weighs. We are not going to tell you what effect it may or may not have. We're just going to say it's added weight for more power. End of story. I don't like that. At least with previous Power Pulse, they gave us specific weight. They gave us some statistics. They gave us some studies. There was some lab testing. There was none of that with this. And maybe we'll see it down the road. I'm hoping that we'll get some kind of scientific reason as to why they've done it exactly this way. But for what it is right now, it doesn't look. Somebody made a comment, and I wish I would have saw the username. I can't remember it, but he made a comment saying it's like taping a quarter to the bottom of your foot and expecting to feel a difference. And it blew my mind. It blew my mind. And I know you talked about having it kind of feel like there's more weight at the front. I'm really, really curious to know as to whether or not that is a mental thing. Because what I was doing before I even made my review, after trying the boots and kind of coming to the conclusion that, man, I cannot feel anything underneath my feet, I grabbed a couple other football boots and I just tried to like balance them in the middle and see if it had a different balance point at the very least compared to other football boots. And I couldn't come to anything conclusive. I know it's not a very scientific experiment, obviously, but it was really difficult for me to tell that this added weight was significant enough to change the balance point of the football boot. And you certainly didn't feel it when swinging your leg. So I don't know. I hate the gimmickiness of this implementation. And it's also something I pointed out in my review. This is one of those things where it's going to be sitting at a store, whether it's a Unisport store or somewhere else. Someone's going to walk in, say,
the Unisport store, of course.
The Unisport store.
Somebody's going to walk in. In this.
There's no other stores. So they're walking into the Unisport store. They don't know much about football boots at all. They pick the Predator off the wall, try them on, say, oh, you know what? These feel good, whether they're right or wrong or whatever else they want to try, doesn't matter. But they could leave that store and not even realize that this is an actual feature on the football boot. And to me, that's, if you can't feel it, I don't care if a football boot technology doesn't actually make a difference, because we see big brands make huge performance claims all the time. But when it's a main element, a main marketing point for the football boot, and you can't even feel it, that to me is now, that's dumb.
I'd love to put like a little knife under it and just see, you know, how big it is, you know, take it off and actually weigh it.
I think I'm actually going to do that at some point, because I'm so frustrated by this, given their history of implementing actually cool implementations of weight. This to me is just like, I'm upset. I don't know what else to say. I'm upset at how vague they were in regards to what they've actually done here and what effect it's actually having.
The funny thing was that, you know, you got them a little bit after I did, and you know, we talked about them when I'd gotten them, and I said, you know, I shared my thoughts, right? And I could feel your excitement, and it felt like, you know, despite my some of the shortcomings that I saw, that you were still like, you know, nah, I'm excited about these. You were genuinely, you know, I respect your opinion, Jay, but you know, I think these are for me. So I can really feel, you know, the disappointment that you don't like them. But yeah. Any last remarks? I know you could probably harp on forever about.
No, I really hope that this is going to be like a Hypervenom Phantom 2 situation where 6 months from now, hopefully even sooner than that, we get some kind of new upper variation, or they do a 0.2, basically. Make us a Mark II version of this football boot with a softer upper, because I really do feel like a softer material, swapping out this prime knit, will change the experience of this football boot.
The funny thing is that they should do a 0.2. That should be the actual 0.2, but just with better materials. I think that would actually make a lot of difference. Yeah, okay, you might not get as much grip, but I'm cool with that. I mean, I'd actually like to see that. But look, let's see what happens. Which of the models would you go for? The plus 0.1 low?
Visually, I like the 0.1 low, but I think the lacing system actually makes the boots feel even stiffer than the plus model. Jay, I can't. Truthfully, I cannot even pick one, because I just don't like them.
I wouldn't
wear them. I wouldn't wear them.
Go.
No, I wouldn't wear them. I can't.
Wow.
Like, I can't believe how bad this boot feels out of the box. Like in an age, I've had a bunch of conversations in DMs with a lot of people who have disagreed with what I've had to say about these boots so far.
Right.
Talking about, you need to wear them for longer.
Look, fair enough.
After a month, they're going to feel great. And I think you'll agree with me on this. Modern day football boots are not, they're not thick enough to require that much break-in time. And the materials used aren't types of materials that really change much over time. There's going to be a little softness.
Like break-in time is not something we see these days. It's just like, you know, if a boot has break-in time, it's just that I don't have time to spend that time to break it in.
Break-in time now is more about you getting used to the feel of the boots rather than the boots adjusting to your feet.
It is what it is. Okay, let me go then. I will say that I will actually, right now, the Freak is not for me. And like I said in my review, I have a little bit of a hard time looking past this, you know, thing with the fit and the volume and the stiffness. I do appreciate it for what it is and what they've gone for. It's just not for me. But I would go with the laceless model. And I would do that because for some reason, like I also said in my review, the last lace hole on both the 0.1 lows and the 0.1s is somehow digging into my foot. And
that's another thing. I pointed that out in my review as well. You can feel the little gap between the lace holes because of how stiff the upper is. You can actually feel them pressing into your foot.
Okay.
Which is, I've never experienced that with other football boots. I'm so surprised by these.
Yeah. I think surprised is a nice way to, you know, like, dial things down in a nice way. However, now we're also gonna, unless you have anything you want to get off your chest.
Yeah, okay, I'll make a pick actually. You should buy the Freak 0.1 low or a Freak Plus and just completely ignore that the Predator Edge is a thing right now. It's a better football boot that utilizes the same concept.
I would also, to be fair, if we can bring the Freak into the frame, I would probably also choose the Freak. Yes.
Yeah.
I would definitely do that. Anyways, we have some questions here that you guys made on the community post that we did. So we're gonna choose some of those. There's one from Boogeyman FC. Let's say that the Boot Nerds podcast is actually also a time machine. That would be pretty cool. We could fix a lot of things. This time machine is set to take us back to the point in that time that Addy were deliberating staying with Demon Skin in an evolution of the Freak or changing to the idea of the Edge. Jay and Josh show up to the meeting. What is your advice and why? And I have this idea in my head that we show up to the meeting and what immediately happens is that Josh starts throwing chairs just because he's mad. What would you, I mean, I guess we both know the answer to this question. What would you do, Demon Skin or Zone Skin?
No, I don't think I would be against the Zone Skin concept. I really like it. I prefer the look of it over Demon Skin.
Yeah.
I think from a durability perspective,
it's more predatory, right?
It's going to do better than Demon Skin will from a durability standpoint. I think what I would be really trying to push for is changing that upper. Whether it's leather, whether it's a synthetic material, I think it needs to be something different because I feel like this Primeknit base, I didn't love it even on the Mutator or the Freak Plus, and I understand their logic of you need a thinner material because the rubber's adding some substance and cushion to the material, but at this point it's gotten so stiff that there's no more feel that translates from the ball to your foot. The upper is what I would really push for.
Yeah. I think I would say what I also said before. Let's find somewhere in between where the Freak was and where the Edge ended up and have less structure from the actual fins, but try and work on a way to make the fins, take the actual fins from the Edge Plus and 0.1s and have the amount of them and the spacing in between from the 0.2s and see where that takes us. And maybe make an actual inline leather Predator.
That would
probably be my message to everyone while I was, dodging all the chairs flying through the air. Right. One from Carlo Paez here. Which is better? What? Oh, which is the better brother for the Predator Edge? The Mutator, the Freak, or their brother from another Make-A-Wave Ignitus?
It is that was another impression. If you look at the Wave Ignitus 3 striking element, kind of similar. It's a similar shaping at the very least.
Oh, yes.
Again, I said it earlier in this video. I think the Predator Instinct is the better comparison to at least the shaping of the Zone Skin elements rather than the LZ. I feel like they're really just clinging on to the 10-year thing and the fact that they made them blue and orange to relate this back to the LZ. But it's definitely more of an Instinct style Predator element. What an interesting colorway that was, eh?
Yeah, and it's like it's not exactly like they've completely innovated on this since then. I mean, it's funny. What would you choose, Instinct or Edge?
Oh, Instinct. Instinct would be my favorite non-leather Predator model.
Oh, really?
As much as I really don't like the sole plate and stud pattern.
I'd probably choose a couple over the Instinct, but yeah, it's not bad. It's definitely not bad. I just thought it was too wide and boxy for me, but that's a whole other discussion. Daniel Donabit, why is the toe box so high? Is the toe box as high volume on the Edge 0.1 and 0.1 lows as it is on the Plus? And do the models with lasers have the same amount of grip and feature the same upper material this time round? Yeah, Pogba was also wearing the laced one, and it seems like he was wearing a lace cover. Was he? Wasn't his laces just undone?
Yeah, I'm not sure.
I think it was.
I would be very curious to see a pro-issued version of this boot.
Same.
Very curious.
Yes. But to answer the question, why is the toe box so high? I think it's simply because, the fins are holding or creating that structure for the toe box. So it's kind of keeping it, holding it up, preventing it from falling down like we would see on an X that don't have any fins on it, right? Same elements on the 0.1s as on the Plus. Yeah, same elements. The upper material is different. So the color is the same material. same knit material, but then we have a textile knit underneath on the 0.1s. So that's it. Tooling's the same. It doesn't look super uber mega cool, but it only looks cool. So
I don't know why I just thought of this, but the super high toe box and the structure that it has, it kind of reminds me of those guys that buy a pair of Jordans and then they cut out the cardboard thing that holds the shape and they jam it inside so they don't get any creases. It kind of feels like that's what Adi have done here with this toe box area. They added in their anti-crease element with the structure of the material and the zone skin, and it just
But it's just, if they get the shape and the softness of this boot right,
yeah,
it has potential. It has potential to be genuinely good. That's the frustrating part, right?
Yeah, I don't think the design is that flawed.
No,
I just think the materials they've used are wrong to the point where the boot doesn't move with your foot like it should.
But if it did, I mean, that was the thing. I was like, okay, this is going to break in. This is going to be fine. It's going to work. It just never really did it for me. And then, the toe box stay high, but just when I look at it, push the toe box down, it's not bad.
Yeah, it seems okay, right? But man, it's just a different feel on feet.
It is what it is. Hi, Josh and Jay, says Angel Lima 007. Do you think that the diamond in the sole plate is an attempt from Adidas? That's the power facet, by the way. Looks like something out of, Vision from Marvel.
Okay, yeah, I know what you're talking about.
Anyways,
I've not seen that, but.
Do you think it's an attempt from Adidas to try and justify the slightly higher weight that the Predators have had since the return in 2018? Because with the Mutators and the Freaks, Adidas didn't have a valid argument to justify the weight. Big fan from Mexico. Love the content. Thank you very much, by the way. I don't think it's something to justify the weight. I think it's actually something they've been going for, adding that power, and they've thought, okay, how can we do that? Let's add this element. Not only does it look mega super uber cool, because I reckon it does, but I think they must have hoped or had the idea, had this theory that it was going to do something, and it might do something in a lab. I mean, I'd be very curious to see that, but I think they were going for it. And I think the intentions, that's the thing, the intentions from Adi, I think, have been very good on this. And, again, the potential is there. It's just like, they just needed to be a few things tweaked for it to be like really good.
Yeah, I don't think the weight is like a masking of the total weight of the football boot. I know football boots have trended towards getting lighter and lighter. I've always been of the opinion that the Predator doesn't need to be mind-blowingly light. No, it is worth noting that these are almost a full ounce more than the model it replaces. I think it's like 25 grams is a difference overall. Yeah. I'd be really curious to know what the actual weight of this insert is. And I think I will be pulling one out at some point in time just to find it out.
Someone should do it.
But I do want to point out that I think the added weight is more so down to the elements themselves. Rubber is not light.
No.
It's the reason why when you get a pair of indoors with the same upper, the weight increases dramatically.
Because of the tooling, yeah. It's
because of the rubber.
Yeah. It's
I would bet there's probably 100 grams, maybe not. Maybe let's say like 60 grams of rubber.
There's a lot of rubber.
On the upper.
There's a lot of rubber, yeah. Marky Mark. Jay, did your sole plate crack? I took these out of the box, put them on, stretched the toe area out a bit. Nothing major, normal. Nothing major, normal. Movement that a foot would make, and my sole plate has visible cracks running through it. Hopefully, Marcy Mark, it's just the paint, just like for Josh and me. And yeah, I have these, you can't see, but I have all these little like almost wrinkles in the paint that it hasn't fully cracked yet, but it's definitely not completely smooth anymore.
Yeah, it's weird. You can see unavoidable. It when it's bent.
It's just the way it goes.
There's I guess for those that are watching, I'll just bend this right on the microphone so you can hear it. It makes there's these little like stress fractures in the paint on the surface, and it makes an awful noise. And the first time you do it when it's fresh paint, it's loud. Like it feels like a chiropractor adjustment.
See guys, this is a man who does not love his football boots in his hand. It's like, and it's not me. I mean, it would definitely survive that, but it's Josh going full. Yeah, no. Alexis Chenkual, how is it compared to the OG LZs? I don't really
let's give you this question. Would you rather wear the Edge or would you rather wear the LZ?
And I asked myself that question. I wore the LZs because I haven't been like, historically haven't been that fond, haven't had those fond memories of the LZ. It's a decent football boot. I just pulled it out the other night for training, and it's actually not that bad. I actually had a good time with it. And I thought, damn, it has its flaws. And you can tell that it's a football boot from 2012. Absolutely. But from a, comfort fit, even a performance point of view, touching the ball and all that stuff, it felt great. I took the LZ, and I probably put it, higher up my list of best Predators ever than I would have done before wearing it again.
Yeah, I think the LZ represents a huge change in the history of the Predator, and longtime Predator fans hated it. I was not a big fan when it first came out, but honestly, it was a concept that really grew on me. I'd wear an LZ over a Pred Edge any day of the week, but I really feel like the sweet spot for that concept was LZ2 had a more refined shape. I found those more comfortable. And Predator Instinct I also really liked. But I think when you're talking about like what is objectively the best of those models, LZ2 is probably the sweet spot.
I think it depends on what you want. I would also take the LZ one. Or the LZ one, definitely LZ2 over that. But I think, Edge it just feels like there's just more boot, right? There's more power, there's more grip, there's just more. This is a brute. It's a tank. It's a, I forget, it's a juggernaut, right? It's just like a head down and it's just going to smash through everything. And some people will like that. It's not for me. And I'm an ex-Speedboot Mercurial Ultra Morelia kind of guy. I love that feeling. But yeah, LZ's for me. Final question here. Johnny Lowe III. That is a wicked name. And when you have like numbers in your name.
Numbers in your name.
I should totally add that one day.
You should be like J-Mike.2.
Yeah, wow, that would be good. Is the top lace hole on the .1s a deal breaker?
I think there are there's much bigger concerns before you even get to the top lace hole as a concern. For me, at least.
See, for me, I would actually, and this is my experience, right? And feet differ. Foot shapes differ. I have a very high arch. At some point, the top part of my wrist is super weird. It's like it goes up and then there's a bump and then it continues going up in the same straight line. It's weird. What I will say though is for me, that lace hole, the last lace hole, it gave me like some really bad pressure marks to the point where they actually started bleeding. That was not nice. And I don't really have any desire to go back and wear that model. I know what happens, right? So for me, it just doesn't fit my foot. So yes, I would say that it's a deal breaker. I would go for the pluses, or at least try and have something on my foot, something to prevent that lace bite, because I had to take them off and put on my speed flows in that training session.
I think the stiffness of the upper on the laced models does push the little bit of exposed lace between the lace holes. It ends up pushing it into your foot.
And also, if you look at it compared to the to the speed flow, I was looking at very like measuring and all that stuff. I know it's a little bit nerdy, but hey, Boot Nerds podcast after all. And on the .1, the .1 lows, the last lace hole of the edge actually sits quite a bit lower on the foot than it does on the X. Which meaning that, no issues in the X speed flow, but it just hit a point on my foot that's never really been rubbed against by anything like a lace. And it didn't respond very well to that. So yeah. Okay. So that was the Boot Nerds podcast episode number 130. Let's see if we'll ever do an episode 131, if we'll be like shut down or something.
Who knows? Who knows?
But I'm really interested in hearing, if there are any of you guys out there who have gotten the Predator Edge yet. pluses, 0.1 lows, whatever, what your thoughts are on them. If you like them, I love to hear that. I'm very open to that. Let us know your thoughts in the comment section right down below, of course. If you have any questions, we'd like to bring up those in the next episode as well. So leave them right down in the comment section as well. If you had a good time, you liked the video and Josh's rant, and basically like virtual throwing off chairs, hit that thumbs up button. And of course, make sure you've subscribed to the Boot Nerds podcast by clicking the white bubble in the middle of the screen. If you want to go check out what we're doing at Unisport and Josh's channel SR4U, you can also hit those. And with those words, I've been J Mike, and I approve this message. See you next time.
Thanks for watching.
Let's be a bit more positive next time. Yeah,
super positive.
We like to be happy.
The next episode will be about Mizuno boots exclusively.
Mizuno's what we love about Mizuno.
We haven't mentioned them in this podcast. We got them in right at the end.
What we love
Have
about
a good
Mizuno.
one.
I like that. That's a good one.